Hello, all. Greg Wood here, co-founder of Archivist. I wanted to walk through the Data Studio, but first a little bit of context about what the Data Studio is showing. So right here, I'm in our demo world, Coastal Colossals. What the Data Studio does, it visualizes all of the links that you're going to find throughout Archivist. And by links, what I literally mean are all these highlighted words here, like Castle Keep Hollow or Tony Bianchi and so on. So this is a summary linking to each of those entities. And you're going to find them throughout in the timeline. You'll find them in Compendium, see here Bark or Stephen or House of Rest, and these characters as well. PB Stussy has linked to the Kragan Hatchling or other entities. So this is a way to visualize kind of the web of interconnectivity of your campaign. You'll find this by clicking in the Data Studio tab. And then we'll go ahead and open up one of the preset views. So first off, what you're going to see here are a lot of things. Namely, you're going to see sources and targets. And what I mean by that are there are target nodes. In this case, targets can be comprised of any of the compendium types. Those are characters, items, locations, and factions. Actually, let me point it out here: characters, items, locations, and factions. And then also moments as well can be the target of an edge or a connection. The sources can also be the same things. Actually, I'll just point it out in this column on the right-hand side. Sources can be any of those characters, items, locations, factions, moments, but also timeline and also summaries. And the reason we had this separated out here a little bit below and you see moments there twice is because when we add to a lot of the filters, some of these can be time bound or really based on what happened in a given session. So we'll have more on that later. So what this is showing on screen with these little electrons that are kind of running from the sources to the targets is the connection between, in this case, anything gray is a step, part of the timeline itself, connecting to Shumble. So these are actual steps, kind of that play-by-play granularity, something that happened in your campaign or in your story that Shumble was tagged and involved in. So that is what this at a core is visualizing. So if I zoom on out, now it's going to show a whole lot more of this web of interconnectivity. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of presets and filters here, but to make it a little easier to digest, we have a handful of presets that are curated views that you can explore and use almost as a jumping off point to then get to the views that you would like. So this first one is called Top Entities. What this is doing is it is sorting and displaying in effectively a grid format all of the characters, or excuse me, not all of, but the top X number. In this case, the preset is all your PCs. Count of characters, items, locations, and factions. And those are in corresponding blue, gold, green, and purple color here. While this does say top 5, there's only 2 items in this campaign, which is why there's only 2 on screen. But then for locations and factions, similarly, there's only 2 factions in this demo campaign as well. But it's all ordered this way. And then what you're going to see in the far right column are the most tagged entities of its respective category will be on the right, and then it'll just kind of in order go one to the left, and so on. So Shumble is the most tagged character with 21 tags. Kaladin is number 20. Moving on to the left, Tony is 17, and so on. So it's in an ordered rank by character or by type. Now, this kind of makes it easy to digest, and you can play with these and say, show me, you could say, show me all of your characters, and then it will show, a lot more. It's harder to digest this way, which is why we kind of start off with just the PCs. So you can get a handle on the data itself. But you can also play with some of these other filters, and I won't go through all of these. This video would be hours long. But one of the other views I like to do in terms of this, which is the top entities, we are looking at a compact view, and I'm calling it here. This is a snap to grid. Targets are snap to grid. In compact, if you go to relative, this will have all the sizing of the nodes relative to each other. And what do I mean by that is the U1T had 33 connections, while Gripply had 20, it's hard to read, 27. Castle Keep Hollow had 27 and so on. And then so Shumble had 21. So instead of forcing them to all share a column with the number 1 of each category being on this rightmost column here, it is effectively putting all of them relative to one another. So I encourage you to play with these filters and knobs and pulls, as I like to call them, to get to the view that is most interesting to you. Something else that I think is kind of a fun one is this is a physics engine, and this view actually is not a great way to show it, but I'll show it in a bit. But if you want to focus on, say, one thing or a couple things, or maybe hide something, you can do exactly that. So if you right click on anything, you can focus, meaning it's going to dim anything that is not connected to this. And by not connected, I mean it's either not a source or it's not a target of this, but in this case, we clicked on a target. So it's going to dim anything that's not a source of this target. So the amulet of health is linking to Shumble, clamps is linking to Shumble. Some of these actually might be where Shumble is the source and it is linking to the amulet of health. But it's a two-way sync in this case. But so this just kind of removes some of the visual noise. It's still there in the background. You can still see these electrons firing off. But it's a way to focus on exactly what you want to see. And if for some reason you don't want to look at clamps, you can go ahead and hide clamps. Just another right-click action. The last action you can take actually as the right-click menu is say you're not really sure what is the amulet of health that is being referenced here. And you can do this on any node. Go ahead and right-click, hit open, and it will go ahead and open the specific page relative to what you clicked on. So in this case, it's the amulet of health. It's just showing us more details here, and hopefully that is helpful and interesting for you. And you can do that for any of these. I will say we are showing nodes and entities that are tied to session reviews. You're not able to actually look at the timeline until you review a session review. So if you were to click on one of these steps, for example, that is part of a session waiting for your review and approval, it'll take you to that session review. You can go ahead and review it, approve it, and all that, and the navigation will work as you expect it to. So those are the right-click actions. Again, they are focus, which is sort of honing in on the one node that you pick, and you can multi-select these as well. Hiding to single remove, onesie twosies as you go through it, and then open or really navigating to where that is in your story. So that is the top entities preset. You can see up here it's letting us know how many things are hidden. If you were to hide another one, let's hide Tim Rogers. That's also hidden there. So let's go to another preset just to get a sense. If you really want to focus on a specific entity, instead of having to hide all the bunch of different nodes that we just looked at, you can go to Entity Deep Dive. What it's going to do is automatically filter and sort to the number one character and number one tagged character in your story. So we know that's Kaladin Kestis. If you're to hover over this, there's some settings here I'll get to, but it's going to just focus on Kaladin. And you can add other ones. Let's add Tim. So that'll then just show the relationship between the two. What do they share? And give you a sense of kind of that relationship right there. The same thing applies in terms of hiding, focusing, or navigating. You can go ahead and do that. But I will mention when anything is listed here in selective entities, it's going to override everything else in terms of the target. So even though all of these categories are checked and tagged, and there's no limits in terms of the filters here, this is going to override all those to allow you to really deep dive and hone in on exactly what you want. So that's the way you can go ahead and do that. So that's Entity Deep Dive. I will mention, you've probably noticed that we've got these lovely die here that are applied on the target entities. So that is done by hitting this toggle here. You can turn that one off if you don't want to use the die. We thought it was kind of a fun way. And then also the size itself, the node size is growing based on tag count. So let me actually demonstrate this a little bit better on back to this view in top entities. So we have the dice turned off. That's why we're seeing just the circles. But if we turned off scale by count, all the nodes look the same. So we like showing that relative sizing just to visually give you something that has more weight to what you want to see. I'll turn the die on because it's more fun in that way. And similar, show tag count or not. You're just seeing the numbers populate or not. And then for labels, you can have it so it shows centers being the targets. In this case, it's automatically turned on. You can turn that off. Many of them will turn off. There's some other formatting we have applied to the labels. But the other one would be just hover only, turns them all off and gets rid of some of that visual noise. Then if you hover over them, it'll show you both the one that you're hovering on and what it's connected to. And that's why you're seeing other node captions or titles pop up. So let's now move to another one, session specific. So this is one of the unstructured views. And I say that in the sense that this is something that we're not snapping to a grid. There's not a ton of filters applied here. What it's doing is it's going by default to your most recent session. And so if you have 40 sessions, it'll show you session 40. You can actually multi-select if you want. I won't for the sake of this demo, but you have the option to do so. But it's unstructured beyond that. And this is a good way to demonstrate that this is a physics engine behind this entire model. And so you can play with them. And so the clustering is done based on the natural forces of all the targets and the sources and the edges themselves. So you're going to find things that have more connections, in this case, like the U1T, it's larger and has more things around it. And it's also kind of fun to click and drag these. Does it have a big purpose? Not really, but it's fun to play with. While things that don't have much of a other connection, like these elements like Mitor or the Old Village, they're more on the outside. So visually, it just shows you what was more involved versus less, would be based on the density of the clustering at play here. Now, it is still pretty unstructured, and we include this because there are similar data visualization tools that are out there that do a lot of views like this. So if this is what you're familiar and comfortable with, you can go ahead and get those types of views here. But if you do want something more structured, which I personally do, I'm going to go to my favorite view, which is in the timeline deep dive. So we've curated 3 different views for this, and there's a lot going on here, but I'll show you and explain exactly what I mean. Just to get rid of some of this clutter, I'm going to hide a few things. We'll look at just characters. We will reset the physics engine, which is what I just did actually by hitting this reset layout button here. Sometimes things can get out of whack, and you can just click this button real quick and it'll reset the view. So to get oriented, what we're looking at here, again, the gray are all the steps, and this is in chronological order from the start of your session across to the end of the session. Now, I'll actually give a little visual cue here. Arrows will help kind of articulate what I mean or demonstrate what I mean. But so steps, which is that most granular play-by-play, that's gray. Green are minor beats. You can see when those occur. The maroon are major beats. In this case, there's just the 2 of them. And then red is the session itself. You can add more sessions to this. Let's actually go ahead and do the entire campaign. Go ahead and again, reset that filter. Reset the layout, and you can see here are the 3 sessions that we have in this demo campaign. With the red dots, that's 1 session. Here's another session, and then another session as well. So it creates this semicircle arc. Again, steps are the most granular and detailed there you can play with. But just to kind of explain what's going on here, this is a sense of, you can track the sense of, or get a sense of involvement of entities across your story as your story has progressed. So in this case, you're going to likely find your PCs or your entities. In this case, again, I just have characters that are on right now in the middle, meaning because they're involved at the beginning of the story, in the middle, and the end, and kind of all the way throughout. At least I hope so, if they're doing fun and interesting things. So that's where Tony Bianchi and Kaladin and these other characters are recurring ones. They're going to be found in the middle. However, other ones that are less, maybe tagged less important, or maybe just really isolated involvement to the beginning or the end, are going to be on, say, the outside. Like Tim, just tagged in 2. He's just at the front there. PB Stussy, same idea. He has 7, but it's all in the front, so he's front loaded, and you can kind of get a sense of where your entity's involved in terms of your story. These views get pretty powerful when you're thinking about, when were certain entities, or maybe you have a big bad and you can't remember the last time he was pulled in, or maybe it's even a minor character, but it's a way to understand, like, when did I have that NPC last? How long has it been since they've been involved? You can quickly visually see exactly when one of those characters has been involved. And again, I'm just going to get rid of this view to remove some clutter here. You can go ahead and do this for any type as well. Let's get rid of characters and just show these. And these are items and factions. You can have them all in there, but a little more challenging for the demo. So that's the idea with Story Arc. Creates this from start across the arc to the finish of when were entities involved in their tag volume through your story. So next thing I'm going to do is just show you a couple other views. Same information, just organized slightly differently. So we're in Story Arc here. I'm going to use the clock view. Same information. You're going to see it just organized in what looks like a circle, just from a visual cue here. Starts at kind of 12 noon, goes counterclockwise, and ends effectively at 11:59. So that last step right here is the last step of the story. The first step in the session start is at 12 noon. So I'll remove that. And again, this gives you very similar information, but starting here versus going all the way around when were entities involved. Another fun way to visually essentially get a sense of when your entities were involved in the story. Let's go ahead and reset the engine. And then lastly, and very quickly, is just a line. If you want to see this from start to finish in one horizontal line, we got a view just for that. So the start is on the left, the end is on the right, and it should be pretty self-explanatory at this point. I'm not going to drone on and on for that one as well. Let's see. If you wanted to look at your story, I'll call out a couple other things. If you wanted to look at your story, or you feel like there's too much granularity and nuance, I'm going to go back to Story Arc. I think it just lends the best to the following point. If you wanted to look at your story, say, let's add characters, do a little reset. And you thought there's a lot of just so many steps, so many things to look at here. It's kind of a lot, or you want to really hone in on maybe a different level of aggregation for information. You can do exactly that. There's some specific timeline controls that are dedicated to these views where you can hide certain elements. So if you want to get rid of steps, you can go ahead and do that. Just toggle that off. The placeholders are still there, but it gets rid of some of those dots. And then what's also cool is the tag aggregation. By default, it's set at none. But if you want to look at it, say aggregate it up to minor or major beats or even session level, just to show you exactly what I mean, at session level, oh, it doesn't want to play along there. We'll go to minor, or excuse me, major. Let's scroll on in. So what's going on here is you can see all of the connections are in these maroon nodes here. And so effectively, if there was a connection at the step level, it's going to walk up the chain, the hierarchy there, to minor beat and then to major and level that out. So you can see these kind of distinct nodes present themselves as the source. And by that I mean, so in this minor beat, there's a handful. Let's actually go ahead and focus on this one. This is showing you everything that was involved in this major beat, I should say. Sorry, in the breakwater battles and shore skirmish. So here's all the characters, the factions, the locations. No items were tagged in this case, but all the ones that were involved in that major beat. This gives you a sense of just involvement, who or what was present and relevant to be tagged in that entire hierarchy. So it's an opportunity to invest or understand your story that way. Again, we see these focus nodes. If you don't want to do that, you can just X out of it and resort back to your unfiltered, unhidden view. All right, so that is effectively it. There is one more preset, which I'm not going to click on here. It's called Playground. Effectively, it turns all the filtering and views and structured layouts off. You can go ahead and play with that one, at your own leisure. It's similar to the unstructured session-specific view as well, but just really has everything included. But if you want to build or curate your own view, that's the way you could do that. If you want to start kind of fresh, it's totally up to you. So anyway, we hope you enjoy the Data Studio. It's been a ton of fun to build, and we're continuing to think about new views and ways we can improve this. We'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts. Go ahead and let us know in Discord or send us a note directly. But anyway, it's been a pleasure, and have a good one. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.